Iran says its missile attack on Israel was over, barring further provocation. However, Israel and the United States promised to retaliate against Tehran as fears of a wider war intensified. Despite calls for a ceasefire from the United Nations, the United States and the European Union fighting between Israel and Hezbollah continues. Israel renewed its bombardment of Beirut's southern suburbs with at least a dozen airstrikes against what it said were targets belonging to Hezbollah. The militant group, meanwhile, said it confronted Israeli forces infiltrating the Lebanese town of Adaseh and forced them to retreat. Iran described Tuesday's assault on Israel as defensive and solely aimed at its military facilities. Iran's state news agency said 3 Israeli military bases had been targeted. Tehran said its assault was a response to Israeli killings of militant leaders and aggression in Lebanon against Hezbollah, as well as in Gaza. For more on the escalating tensions in the Middle East, let's speak to SABC News international editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, good morning to you. And of course, the UN chief, the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, saying he is extremely concerned about the escalation of the conflict in Lebanon, also seeing what has developed overnight in Iran. They are saying, of course, that it's over. They're not planning on further attacks. However, it's now in Israel's court as to what they do. And in the meantime, there is still ongoing violence in Lebanon and in Gaza. Perhaps you want to weigh in on this and the impact on the region.
Yes, you are correct. Yesterday, Iran indicated that they were targeting the military operations, and that is why they were targeting the military base in Tel Aviv. And secondly, they were targeting Mossad headquarters. You saw that other missile that landed not very far from the building of Mossad. You know that unfortunately around that building you have ordinary people moving around, and therefore I think the Iranian authorities through its military command took a decision not really to hit at that building because that was going to lead to many civilian casualties. You also have a situation where Israel now saying that it is going to retaliate. We saw that meeting that was convened by the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, late last night, midnight, South African time. And that decision was then announced that Israel will retaliate. They had indicated at that time that that was going to happen. Same night or early hours of this morning, but nothing happened. I think the Americans did persuade Benjamin Netanyahu not to launch attacks on Iran to avoid more escalation, because Iran had threatened that should that happen, they are going to double the attacks. And already the attack last night, many see it as the most powerful that Iran has ever engaged in since the standoff. And we hear now this morning that Israel is continuing to bombard Lebanon at the borders with Israel, and that tension has now escalated. We don't know how Hezbollah will respond, and therefore you can see that the entire region is now engulfed in a tense moment.
In terms of Israel's next move, and I think that's what people are certainly looking at and waiting to see if they will take this further, even though this has been described as retaliation from Iran's side. Where are we going with this? I mean, I know it's $1 million question, and one that only those in the know and in politics and power can answer. But, you know, in history, what does it tell us? Where do you think we're headed?
We are headed towards a very tense situation in the Middle East. The Third World War, no, I don't think so. That's what the former president of the U.S. characterized the whole situation as a sign towards that. I don't think so. You have the superpowers. You have America on the side of Israel. You have the superpower that is Russia on the side of Iran. And these two powers will hold this tension not to really get out of hand. But we don't know. That's my prediction, that America will continue to call Israel to pull back. On the other hand, you'll have Russia speaking to Iran and indicating the danger of causing the whole region to be at war. You also have friends of Iran within the South-South countries who would be speaking to Iran behind the scenes. You also have friends of Israel in Europe who are part of the Western world that is supporting Israel, to speak to Israel, not to really challenge Iran, because it can lead to a very bad situation, because Iran's nuclear capability and military capability, it's not clear how strong it is because of the sanctions and all of that. It has never been able to understand, but the world know very well that Iran has got nuclear capability. The same with Israel, with support of these superpowers. Therefore, I think that will be perhaps something that one can look at, what Russia is saying, China and other countries, friends of Iran, and what is America and other countries, friends of Israel, are saying.
All right, we leave it there. Sophie, thank you very much for weighing in on the conversation, and we'll be watching and seeing how things develop through the day, and we'll keep you updated on SABC News.